No, you just press it, right? And it turns green?
Yep.
Yep.
So we can get you. I do have mine. I'll pass it down.
Well, thank you for your time.
It was a real party.
All righty then.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here tonight. I'd like to call to order the Rapid City Area Schools Board of Education study session. Shirley, can we have a roll call, please?
After I get muted again. Are you muting me? Mute me again. No, I'm not. I'm
I can hear. No.
not. No, I am. Troy Carr,
Here.
Jamie Clapham,
Here.
Christina Stephenson,
Here.
Deb Baker,
Here.
Kate Thomas,
Present.
Michael Berkland.
Here.
And Walt Swan.
Here. All right, may we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We're on to item 3, approval of the proposed agenda. We are gonna have a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Stop, stand by. We have an amended motion to the agenda that we need to make. I'm sorry, ladies.
Well, I wanted to be first.
I'd motion to amend the agenda to include, executive session for SDCL 125-2.1.
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right, that will be item actual 7, and it'd be adjusted, and item 7 current will be item 8. All right, now I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the proposed agenda.
I make a motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right. Persons wishing to address the school board, we have 2 on tonight. And each of you will get 5 minutes since it's only the 2 of you. First up, Mr. Pfeiffer. I hope I said that correctly. All right. Okay, you. Nope, not yet. Shirley's coming around to help you get it turned on.
My name is Garrett Pfeiffer. I have 2 kids that go to Meadowbrook. I wanted to just say a couple things, hopefully sort of briefly. One, in my life, I've made a lot of excuses, I'm sure. But I've learned from some people smarter than me that to say that I don't have time probably isn't valid because we just choose to do different things with our time. It isn't that we don't have time. And I bring that up in the context of, and that's okay. I'm not here to judge anyone's use of their time but my own. But I bring it up in the context of attending this meeting or board meetings, or I can't be there because I'm taking a child to gymnastics or basketball. I could listen live. I could listen a week later in the shower or mowing the lawn. I could be informed whether I have time or not. And I bring that up in the context of you guys have talked about improving communication, and I greatly appreciate that. But I think it's beholden on me to also be informed, and I attended last spring quite regularly and I learned quite a bit. And so when I did get news, it wasn't as surprising or as anxiety producing or whatever, because I had more detail. And that's on me. And what I'm getting at finally is thank you for trying to communicate, and please continue to try, even though there are people like me who out of laziness just aren't always here or whatever. The other thing I want to say is with a school closing and rezoning, there's going to be some discomfort there. My daughter's classes are going to be bigger, but we'll figure that out. If we end up going to a different school, we'll figure that out. And I'm not judging anyone's opinion of that or them disagreeing or any of that. It's all difficult. But I'm a selfish person. I think of myself a lot. I think of my family a lot. And I think we tend to do that as humans. Our brains are survival machines. That's what they're wired for, to keep us alive, out of danger, etc. Some of that's archaic wiring that doesn't really serve us that well now, but that's the reality. I want to thank you for divorcing yourself from that a little bit and making decisions on behalf of a community, a society, a bunch of schools, a bunch of teachers, a bunch of students. I won't always agree with them. I sometimes will. It doesn't really matter. My point is, thank you so much for doing that work, for being willing to do that work. Please continue to serve and to act on behalf of our society, our community, because whether a tribe, a society, a community, whatever you want to call it, they don't survive unless there are people willing to do that. And like I said, I'm selfish. I tend to think of myself and my family, and you guys are acting on behalf of something bigger than that. And I'm very thankful for it. And I know there's a lot of people who are, even though you don't always hear that part. Please understand that it's true, and please keep doing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, Mrs. Thompson. Yeah, Thomas and Thompson.
Yeah,
Thompson and Thompson.
no relation. Okay. My name is Florence Thompson. I'm president of South Dakota Parents Involved in Education, SDPI. And I'm also a retired school psychologist with over 40 years experience in the schools. I'm a volunteer lobbyist in Pierre. And I was down in Pierre when the School Sentinel program was discussed. So I'd like to talk a little bit about school safety. The School Sentinel program is in statute. It's a law in South Dakota. And what it provides is that volunteer staff members can take a firearms course, not just a firearms course, but a complete training course at the police academy in Pierre, the same type of training that police officers get that they would use in, say, a building or a school setting. You know, they don't do traffic stops and they don't train this type of thing, but it does, it's an extremely thorough and professional training. And the people that take this training would have to be also people who'd had previous training in firearms and who were skilled in that area. And this is as an excellent deterrent to keep to keep students and teachers and other staff safe from shooters in the schools. The quickest way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. When seconds count, the police are only minutes away. And that's the problem. You need a person that's right on the spot, on the scene, that is armed and that knows what to do. This has a tremendous deterrent effect because a would-be perpetrator does not know who in the school might be armed. Now, they know there's a uniformed officer there, but they can surveil that person and they can see what their movements are, and they can make sure that they're not in the area when they decide to do an attack. So there is an advantage to having, having a regular uniformed officer, but also there's a tremendous advantage to having a bunch of plainclothes, responsibly armed and trained people who can respond in the event that we hope this never happens, but in the event that there would be a shooter or some other kind of attacker in the schools. So just keep in mind how quickly these shootings do occur. The casualties are all in the first few minutes generally. So often if there is an armed person on the scene, there are only 2 fatalities, the first victim and the shooter. So really, I hope RCAS would look into the School Sentinel program. It is an excellent program. It's very professional, and it will add another layer of safety for our students and our staff. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, board response to open forum. Mrs. Stephenson.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Pfeiffer, for coming in and speaking to us. You, I mean, your gratitude is so appreciated. I left the house tonight and was like, okay, let's go listen to people tell us that we've done the wrong thing. And so I appreciate that. But you bring up a very important point that I think this board needs to recognize. I served on the board from 2017 to 2020. And there was media that attended, not all the time, but they wrote stories. And so like I grew up in a house that was really well educated, or I mean, not educated, well informed. We read the paper, we had the nightly news on every night, we had the morning news on every night. And so my parents didn't need to go to school board meetings. They didn't need to go to city council meetings. We had our responsibility was met by reading the paper or watching the news. And I don't think that's happening anymore. And I think that's change has become more and more pronounced every year that goes by, which means that as a board, we have to change, and as a district, we have to change. Like, it used to be the communications director was talking about, you know, releasing press releases, but then working on communication between the district and staff and students. And now the job of the communications director is far bigger because we have to figure out ways to get information to the whole community without a real presence of media. And so I just want to plant that seed in everybody's mind about like, the communication has changed so much, and I think we have to learn new skills that board members didn't used to have, I guess. Or we need to talk about how to communicate effectively with the whole community, given the vast change to the environment.
All right, Mr. Clapham.
I just want to say the same. Thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer, for such a clear and clearly genuine expression of gratitude. I think it's so important for all of us, just as human beings, to be genuine and to recognize that words can be very powerful. And we have to remember that from this seat, for sure. And it is empowering and comforting to hear that coming to this seat as well, and very appreciated. Very briefly, as far as the Sentinel program, I think I would need a lot of research and back information. And one of the reasons that we, what I think made the wise decision as a board to start Mr. Sargent's position, for him to help guide us and understand what is absolutely best. And we have great trust in his experience and his expertise to guide us in the choices we should make for security and safety for our schools.
Anybody else? Ms. Thomas?
Yes, and thank you, and I agree, and I hope that we can at least have that as an option on the table, if even to bring it off the table. And that's why we did hire you. So I'm appreciative of that expertise as well. And I cannot thank you enough as well. Mr. Pfeiffer, sorry. I remember you coming in quite often, and you were always very eloquent in what you were upset with. You weren't coming to yell at us. And so it was a lot easier to listen and hear where you were at. And so when I did see you tonight, I was like, oh no, what did we do wrong this time? But to hear that, we just do not hear that enough. And I think there are more people out there that do think that. They just don't think that they need to come and say it. So I think this is one of those moments where we're not supposed to be responding for the rest of the board, but I'm pretty sure that we're all very, very thankful. So thank you.
All right, anybody else? Well, Mr. Pfeiffer, it looks like you are man of the night. Maybe we'll have a new, well, it's too late now. You are officially the man of the night. And so again, I too appreciate your coming in and your communicating, and we will continue to make a commitment to communicate. And to that end, that is one of our pillars in our strategic plan, communicating. And from this position, our job is to communicate to the public, but it's a whole district attempt to make sure that the flow of communication goes from the top of the board all the way down to the lowest position in the district. So yeah, we'll keep striving to do that. So again, thank you so much for your kind words. And with the Sentinel program, Mr. Sargent, are you going to speak on that tonight? Yes? Okay. Okay, all right. It's my understanding that it was not the recommendation of our local police force for us to participate in that. So we know about it, you know, we're educated about it, but from what my impression was, it was not something that our local police and sheriff recommended for the district. So Superintendent Swigert, if I'm wrong about that, you can chime in now.
Thank you, President Carr. At this time, the local Rapid City Police Department and the Pennington County Sheriff's Office are not in favor of Rapid City area schools going with a Sentinel program. And we could certainly ask them to come and speak to it as well.
Okay.
At a future time.
Well, I'm good with that. I was just informing the
absolutely.
public as to
Yep.
why, number one, that we do know about it and why we haven't chosen to participate.
In many of the districts that are utilizing Sentinels, it is because there is no local law enforcement presence in that
Okay.
community. So a Sentinel is employed so that, for instance, if you're out in Newell or Union Center or someplace in Meade County, there's not necessarily a Meade County sheriff driving down the street if an event would happen.
Yeah.
And so, smaller communities away from the jurisdiction of the county sheriff's office might go that route. On the other hand, Rapid City Area Schools has SROs in all of our high schools and our middle schools. They also have assigned buildings at our elementary program. We are, of course, always investigating ways to increase our presence with SROs. However, they are having a hard time finding employees, like education is having a hard time finding employees. So we have to be aware of that as well. I think we always have to be open to having conversations because things can change. And I know that our relationship is very strong with the PD and the sheriff's office. And I know that those leaders would tell us if their opinions changed. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Sergeant, this is not an attempt to steal any of your thunder because we know that you're gonna have a presentation in just a little bit here. All right, any more board comments? Seeing none, we're gonna go to item number 6. I think for sake of clarity, our intention is trying to put each presentation at 30 minutes. So again, I understand if we go over a little bit, so that would give each presenter or each team that 30 minutes so everybody can get in a decent time. I think our last meeting, we didn't get out till 9:10, so we're gonna try to hope not to be late again tonight. So, okay, all right, at this time, item 6, I don't know if Dr. Hafer's going straight, if Superintendent Swigert, if you're introducing or.
Thank you, President Carr. We have 3 topics tonight that we're talking about. We are talking first with the ELL group, and Dr. Hafer is here. After that, we're going to go into student nutrition. Mr. Sassy is going to introduce that via Zoom, and then Krista Leichner is going to speak to that. She is the student nutrition manager, and we're going to close out tonight with the school safety manager, Matt Sargent. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Hafer and her team.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
There we go. Sorry, isn't that how this always works when you're trying to do this? There we go. Okay, we are the English Learner Specialist team, and I'm very excited to introduce everybody here. We have practiced. We will do this in 25 minutes.
All right.
If we talk faster, we'll get her done. So I just wanted you to know, we practiced. So I want to introduce you to my team that's here tonight. Yami Nunez is our coordinator and our family liaison. Shelby Bowden, she works with our elementary newcomer program, which is something we implemented just these last couple of years. Odalis Hibner is our middle school EL program. Saul Smith down here works with our high school EL program, and Tracy Heron is kind of all over the district as our pullout EL program. And we do have two paraeducators, Cynthia Ross and Rosita Meyer, who are with us tonight, but we wanted to make sure that you knew that we had those people too. So I'm going to turn it over to Yami so she can tell us a little bit about her position.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jamie, and I would like to share some information about our English Learners Program. I would like to start by saying that currently we have 173 students, and this number is changing constantly, increasing constantly. For example, last year we received during the whole school year, 41 students. And this year, so far, only in this semester, we have received 46 new students. So increasing all the time. I will also like to mention that we have 22 different spoken languages in our district. And of those, the top 3 are Spanish, Igbo, and Vietnamese. So I thought it was interesting for all of you to know a little bit about our languages.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What's that second language?
Oh, Igbo is from Nigeria. Yes. We have a big population of people from Nigeria and Africa that work at the hospital. A lot of them work at the hospital.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So how we identify our English language learner students. I would like to start by saying that when the families come into the district to enroll their children for the first time, they need to complete the home language survey. And in this survey, they need to respond to 4 questions about which is the specific language spoken at home, how frequently, that kind of information. So when they select a language other than English, Dr. Hafer will receive an email with a red flag indicating that there's a family with a other language than English. And she will forward this email to our team. And then we will use a weekly report. We receive reports every Monday. And with this report, we compare the information that Dr. Hafer has forward it to us. And also we check if there are any new students. And why do we do that? Because sometimes parents complete the application and they select English as the first language, and it's not. So we also verify which new students come into the district to verify their language. Also, because of this situation, some parents just mark English, and when the students go to the school, teachers started to realize that students struggles. And then they realize, oh, maybe there's something else going on. And a lot of the times they notice it's another language. So the school staff, a lot of time teachers or the administration of the school will refer those students to us. And we also have cell referrals. Cell referrals are the family that already know families that are in our program that just call us and try to reach to us to let us know that they're new into the community and they would like to enroll their kids, okay? So some students also come with WIDA scores from other states, and I will explain that in a little bit. So after we check the home language survey, weekly reports, school referrals, and self-referrers, we make a list and we do a parent interview. We call the parents to verify how much English is spoken at home. And if not, then we decide to screen or not to screen the student. After we screen the students, then we are able to verify if they qualify for services or not. So talking about WIDA, like I said before, South Dakota is classified as a WIDA state. So WIDA, it's a consortium of 42 states, Department of Education, territories, and agencies, okay? And they're dedicated to the research, design, and implementation of high quality standards for ELs. They also promote the equitable educational opportunities for English learners. Also, because of WIDA, we have the WIDA Access, and WIDA Access WIDA stands for Assessing Comprehension, Communication in English State to State, and it's the state mandated test that is administered to all English learners every year. We administer the test during the spring. This year is gonna be from the open, right? The window is from January 25th until February 25th. And with this test, the WIDA try to identify the proficiency level of the English learners in 4 domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Okay, and to this side, if you see at the slides, the English language proficiency, WIDA also have 6 English language proficiency levels, 1 through 6, 1 being the lowest and 5 through 6 being the highest one of the proficiency. Okay, well, with that in mind, I will pass the microphone to my coworker Shelby.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
On that access test, is there a point where the student no longer takes it? Like, say they were an English learner in 2nd grade and now they're proficient, they don't, or do they take it until they graduate?
Yes, no, that's a great question. So it goes from level 1 to 6, but as soon as the students reach a 5 in the professional level, they exit the program. The only thing is that we need, as a program, to monitor the students 2 more years after they exit, just to verify that they're doing good in school. So it can be at any grade in their life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. I'm Shelby Bowden, and I run the elementary newcomer program at General Beetle. Students who are EL newcomers are identified based on when they enter U.S. school systems and their scores on the WIDA Access Assessment that Jamie just talked about, or screener. Students qualify if they've been in the U.S. schools for less than 3 years and score between a 1.0 and a 2.4, so those lowest levels on the WIDA language assessment. Currently, there are 33 students from 7 schools attending the newcomer program. Students are bused to General Beetle from their home schools 1 day a week for about 5 hours to work intensively on building their skills and vocabulary in English. The elementary newcomer program focuses on beginning literacy in English, academic vocabulary, and self-advocacy. We begin the year focused on English alphabet, phonics, numbers, and critical language for the classroom, like places at school, how to ask for help, and how to stay safe both inside and outside of school. As students progress through these early objectives, we move into focusing more on using those skills to help us recognize sight words, expressing ourselves with our voices and in writing, and comprehension of both spoken and written English. My goal for these students is that they can participate in grade level activities in English with their peers and we expect that to show in the annual access data in the form of about a 0.5 point of average growth per year. Of the 36 students who attended the program last year, which was our first year trying this approach, 10 made enough progress on the WIDA Access Assessment to move into the intermediate tier of services with Tracy. So they scored a 2.5 or higher overall. Of the remaining students, 6 made more progress than the 0.5 point expected, 3 made their progress goal exactly, 5 made 0.2 to 0.4 points of growth, and 5 students did not show progress on the assessment. And 7 students were not present for the assessment either because they moved away before the assessment or arrived after the assessment. It's not uncommon for a student to not meet their progress goal in EL, especially in the first years, because the assessment becomes very rigorous and advanced at each grade level. And many students enter or leave the district mid-year, so miss out on valuable instruction time prior to the spring assessment. As you can see in the graphic, almost every student made progress in at least one area: listening, speaking, reading, or writing, indicated by the color green. There was very little regression in score or any area indicated by red. And my last statement is, I couldn't be more proud of these students and their progress. I can't wait to see how much more growth the students demonstrate when the assessment rolls around in our 2nd year of the program. Next, we're going to have our high school EL specialist, Saul, talk about the program up there.
Members of the board, thank you for your time tonight. My name is Saul Smith, and I work with our English learners at the high school level here in Rapid City area schools. So as you can imagine, high school is academically the most difficult level for a student to begin learning English. To receive their diploma, they have to complete or they have to master the exact same content as any other student would while simultaneously acquiring English. Over the years, we've tried a lot of different formats for this program. In the past, as with the rest of this program, it depended on a teacher traveling between multiple school buildings and multiple classes to work with individual students. This only allowed each student to receive a few hours a week of support at the most. And the truth is that many students were not successful. So to maximize our impact and create a robust EL inclusive school community, last year we developed a newcomer program at the high school level, just as we did at the elementary level. And so as part of that, now any student who wishes to receive EL services must transfer to Central High School. So first year of the program last year, I tried a number of different formats for a newcomer program. The most popular with the students was one where they received a half a day or more of language instruction from me. But I didn't every day. But I did not see the growth over time that I expected with those students. Even the newest students need immersion to expand their English capabilities. So this year I have reworked the program again. So now our newcomer students, those with the lowest level of English, take 1 or 2 English classes with me, and they take their core classes as part of a cohort so that they can receive support throughout the day from myself or one of our paraprofessionals. The intermediate students take a single English class with me, and our advanced students can arrange one-on-one appointments with me as needed for projects or homework. I'm also working on forming a student organization for speakers of other languages to help, increase our peer mentoring and sense of community amongst our students. Overall, I am extremely pleased with how the program is going this year, but there are still some students who are struggling. Many of those students are what are referred to in educational policy as SLIFE students, which stands for students with limited or interrupted formal education. These students that I work with often have very difficult backgrounds coming from severe poverty, and they frequently face serious challenges outside of their education. Just as examples, I've worked with SLIFE students who were the victims of violence in their home countries, who had children of their own, or who had arrived in the US as unaccompanied minors. And the truth is, we still haven't found a perfect formula for these students. Many of them often need help with basic math, phonics, and social emotional learning skills. Last year, we had 6 students who met at least some of the criteria for a SLIFE designation, and this year we have 4. So nonetheless, as I mentioned, I am overall very pleased with the changes that I've been able to make to this program, and I'm really happy with the direction that it's going. So this slide compares the past of the EL program at the high school level with the current situation. So the first section shows the educational outcomes for students who immigrated between 9th and 12th grade and who participated in the EL program between the spring of 2019 and the spring of 2023. As you can see, those outcomes are not ideal. 7 out of 17 of those students either did not graduate or their families actively sought other programs, other districts that could offer better support for English learners. We had 2 students who graduated, and we have 3 more who are on track to graduate in the next few years or who went into the GED program. But in comparison, if you look at the newcomer and intermediate population this semester, it's larger than the previous 4 years combined. And despite that, all of the students are really being successful at the level that they can be. We have all of the newcomers and intermediate students receiving really substantial support appropriate to their level. As you can see, we have a really wide range of GPAs in this students. I have upperclassmen who are in the top 10th of their graduating class. And then I also have Students who are still really, really struggling. But I'm really proud to say that I think those students, perhaps for the first time in the history of this district, we can say that those students are not struggling because of a lack of support related to language. They're struggling for other reasons. And most importantly, all seniors in the program are on track to graduate this year. Currently, we have 4. So there are still some other difficulties that we're working through. This includes the fact that with our current model, depending on the classes that a student has already completed when they come to us, they may not fit into one of our cohorts. So that could leave them in their core classes with less support than they need. Our cohorts are also only for the core classes, math, science, and social studies. This leaves electives and academy courses without EL staff members present to assist students. And I do have a few students who are facing some serious challenges, especially in their academy courses. And finally, moving to a situation where there are really only a handful of newcomer English learners in the whole district to one where there's nearly 24 just in one school. This has required really new expectations for me and for the other staff in the school. Because there's so many non-instructional communication needs, as you can see on the slide there. We're working to ensure that school staff are familiar with the translation tools at their disposal, especially the district's over-the-phone language line interpreter service. Just making sure that families, staff, and students know that there's an open line of communication is incredibly important because it ensures 2 things. First, it ensures, of course, that students have equal access to the educational resources the district has to offer. It also ensures that staff are able to hold these students to the same standards that other students are held to. And with that, I'll pass you over to Tracy Heron, who works at the elementary level with some of our intermediate students.
Hello, board. Hello, members of the board. I'm the intermediate EL teacher in the elementary schools. For the intermediate students, WIDA scores range from 2.5 to 3.5. Currently, there are 18 students from 6 schools. That could expand to 10. Last year, I was traveling to 9 schools. And that could expand to 10 schools by the end of the year, depending on students entering the district. The average WIDA growth expected is the 0.5. The average growth that I had from 22 to 23 last year was 0.8. Intermediate students are currently pulled out twice a week for 30 minutes to build upon their previous knowledge of the English language by continuing to work on the 4 areas of listening, speaking, reading, and writing using our recently purchased IXL and Rosetta Stone. My students are very excited about that. Thank you. Some challenges is the consortium recommends that students should receive 5 hours a week plus in-class support, but with travel time, there's only time to pull the students for 30 minutes twice a week. And unfortunately, my current schedule is full. I'm also going to share about our para-educators. We have an elementary para-educator. She assists with the newcomer program on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. She is mostly located at General Beadle and pushes in with both newcomers and intermediate students. When not at General Beadle, the para is traveling to 3 other schools during the week to push in with newcomer and intermediate students. Works with 33 newcomers and 6 intermediate students. We also have a middle school, high school para-educator this year for the first time, and pushes in with students every day with a vast array of levels and content, and works with 3 middle schoolers at 2 middle schools and 8 high schoolers at Central High School. And now Dallas Hibner will share about our middle school program.
Good evening, board members. I work at the middle school level and I work with all levels of EL students. Newcomers, which their scores range from 1 to 2.4. Intermediate, the scores range from 2.5 to 3.4, and advanced 3.5 to 4.9. I'm in charge of all 5 middle schools for the EL program, which means that I travel to different schools throughout the week. This creates a challenge to meet EL student needs. Currently, I see newcomer students for 3 hours per week and intermediate students for 1 hour per week. Advanced students are put on a consult status, meaning that I check the students' progress quarterly. So this will bring us to plans for a middle school newcomer program. So there would be one school designated as the EL program school for the middle school. Newcomer and lower intermediate students, so with the score is 3.4 and below, would be transferred to one school as their home school. There's 33 total EL students in grades 6 through 8. Of the 33 students, 18 students scored 3.4 and below on the WIDA Access. Currently, 7 students attend South, 6 attend North, and 5 attend East. EL classes would be built into student schedules. This would count as an elective, pass or fail. We may require an extra teacher or paraeducator depending on the number of students. Lastly, benefits for the middle school newcomer program. Students would not be missing classroom instruction. This would create opportunities for EL mainstream collaboration. This model has already been implemented at Central High School with very positive results. We would offer EL students the opportunity to have the recommended amount of EL service hours for growth. Having a designated EL school allows the staff at the school to become experts at inclusive practices for EL students and families with better educational experiences. And consistent presence at one building allows for better communication with staff and students. And with this, I give the floor to Dr. Hafer to talk about the next slide.
So thank you very much for listening to our presentation. And this is something that I've talked to Superintendent Swaggart about as well, because to make sure the middle school program would run the way that it has been at the elementary and at the high school, it would be advantageous to have another full-time English language specialist and 2 paraprofessionals to help with all of the floating that they do across the district, and of all the newcomers that are coming into our district. Having 46 new students come to us just within the first semester has been kind of a huge transition for us this year. And then also to have the middle school program designated at one of the middle schools. And Jeannie Deming has said that we have space over at South Middle School, so we might have that space already secured. So with that, do you have any questions for us?
All right, thank you for presentation. So I'll recognize hands, and first up, Mrs. Clapham.
I just had one question because talking about coming from out of country. Do we have students, or I guess, sorry, thank you. If we have students who are Lakota as their first language and they come to school with not fluent, do they go into this cohort because they're not externally from out of state, like they're initially coming to American schools, but not necessarily.
Good night again. So Lakota is considered a heritage language. So they're not in the program. We can help them giving them information about the Lakota programs, but they're not part of our program at all. We don't work with heritage language. Thank you.
Mr. Swan.
Same question, I guess, is this heritage language. Can you explain that to me? I mean, it obviously an indigenous language, obviously, you know, to definition would probably be that it originated in this country, on this homeland, right? Is that what we're talking about? Okay. Currently, we do have a Lakota language school here in Rapid City. And I know next year their expansion is going to be 2nd grade. So if their students stay with them, and eventually, in my experience, you know, the curriculum runs out, or they run out of building, or something happens that forces those students into mainstream schooling. And they won't be English language learners. I mean, is there a plan for that? I mean, it's because their population is growing. I think they'll probably be up to, what are they at, 60, 50 students now, maybe. And, you know, with the addition of another 30 kindergartners, it's going to be 90, you know, and it's going to become, it's going to become an issue. And, you know, as we look at our scores now with the Native American population from the reservation, even, you know, it's not, it doesn't show that we're preparing anything, I guess. Just a question. Do we have any plans?
Yeah, I think I can speak to some of that at least. I would say that, you know, as people who work with work with minorities and educate people in the English language. We're very aware of the history of English really detracting and taking away from the preservation of native cultures and languages over time, especially, you know, in the past, maybe up until the middle of the 20th century. So in our policy plan, what we have said is that if someone who's in the Lakota language program were to refer a student to us, we would, you know, we would certainly screen that student. Without that, we don't want to be doing anything where we could be taking someone's language, someone's heritage away from them by focusing on English. Another thing that I can say is that Lakota students who do come to us, so for example, I have a high schooler whose family is bilingual with English and Spanish, and the mother also does speak Lakota. And, you know, that student is just based on the amount of English that they know, they fall into our advanced category if they don't test out initially. And so even if they are identified, we are not providing very many services to them.
That question made me more comfortable asking this question. Is the program mandatory for a family? I guess it would make sense to me if you're in an English school to want to speak English. But do you have parents, you know, I want my kids to stay in our original language? I mean.
Well, okay, yeah. Oh. Okay. Okay. Absolutely. All right. So I will say this, that a district provide some form of language education, whether that's bilingual or what we do, teaching English as a second language, is mandated by law in Supreme Court cases. That is mandatory. You know, however, if a family doesn't want to participate, that is their decision. So any student right now at my level, at the high school level, students who are at Stevens have chosen to stay at Stevens, and they've said we don't want additional services. So we have, right now we have 3 students there who are advanced. We have 1 student we have 1 student at the intermediate level, and we have another student who would actually fall at the kind of beginner level, at the top of the beginner range, but the family declined services. And they are free to do that. That being said, you know, at least in my own classroom, I really try to encourage the use of multiple languages. So I don't use just solely English instruction methods. I also, so, you know, most of us here speak pretty good Spanish, for one. So with the Spanish speaking students, we can communicate. With the other students, I have Chinese speakers, Vietnamese speakers. I've worked with Ukrainian speakers, Bulgarian speakers. Who else do I have? I have Haitian Creole. With these students, you know, I encourage them to use all the tools at their disposal. The computers that we give students now have really robust translation tools that get better and better and better every year. So I encourage them to use that to succeed in school. One thing that can be confusing to people is the objective of these kind of programs. And by law, these students have to master the same content. So if that means that their focus has to be a little bit more on reading the content in their language in a core class, for example, rather than trying to acquire English, even if it means that their English language acquisition is slower, that's considered what's best for them.
Interesting. Thank you. Did see. Okay. Any more questions for? All right, Ms. Thomas.
I guess I'm just,
if we're federally mandated to do this, I mean, I agree, people should have the choice to be in a service or not, especially the parents, because they're the primary caregivers for their children. But if we're federally mandated, how do we work with that? I mean, who do we report to? I mean, how do we get dinged? I don't know how that works. Especially if they are going to continue into high school and need to have that to graduate. Do you often try to push that they do not just use it as an elective, at least in the middle schools where we saw that was more of an elective there? I don't know how we
definitely do push families to be part of the program when possible, but it is their choice. The state does require that we do that WIDA assessment with families, even if they do opt out. So they can choose not to receive services, but they still must be assessed every year to keep accountable for those students through the state.
That's the accountability piece that we have with the federal so we've tested them, they've elected not to, and so we don't get dinged, and that's the reporting we give.
Right, and annually we have to keep testing them whether they want to be part of the program or not,
Okay,
or they exit.
okay.
That's a good question. All right, seeing no other hands, thank you. All right, Ms. Stephenson.
Thanks. This is super interesting. It's a program that I didn't know that much about, and I appreciate the presentation and the work that you do. You're obviously very passionate about it. Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. Very good. Very
You guys did an amazing job. I could tell you rehearsed. Nice job. Very, very good.
And by the way, I don't speak any other languages. It's these guys right here. But if you ever want to come to one of their meetings with me, you will leave laughing. These guys are amazing. So thank you for letting me bring them along to present.
Thank
We
you
are
very
going
much.
to shift presenters now, and Krista is going to join us. Krista, is anyone else coming with you? Okay. Okay, Coy did want to introduce them. He is joining us via Zoom. We'll quit sharing. Lisa, can you stop sharing?
ELL, English language learners. They used to call it English as a second language. And I heard they stopped doing that. Yeah, is that why they changed it?
Bishop Carr, I would like to hand the mic over to Coy.
All right, I guess the chair will recognize Mr. Sassy.
Why, thank you, President Carr. Appreciate that, sir. Good evening, everybody. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I really wanted to make this one. Had some last minute scheduling hiccups, but I'm glad to join by Zoom. Really excited to intro Krista and her team. I think student nutrition has probably changed as much as literally any other program in school systems that we deal with on a daily basis. And as we talk about often, it's a complex area, and at times made more difficult by some of the logistical issues we face. And I think Krista has some really great information, and really excited for her to get a chance to share this with you. And really happy she brought a couple members of her team that I know she'll intro and let you know a little bit about who's working out in the building. So with that, I will toss it over to Krista.
Thanks, Coy. Thanks, President Carr, board members, for having me tonight. As Coy said, my name is Krista Leichner. I'm the Student Nutrition Manager. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to give you a little bit of an overview of my program tonight. I don't typically start every single presentation or meeting with pictures of my children, but this does relate to my job a little bit. I'm on my 6th day back from maternity leave. So this was a fun project to get going on. And that's my newest member to our gang. Her name is Greta, and she's, we love her. So, a little bit about me, I guess. I'm a registered dietitian. This is my 6th year with the school district. I am the School Nutrition Association of South Dakota president, and I put that in there because I'm passionate about what I do and feeding kids not only in the district, but across the state. A little bit, I guess, back up when I was hired in 2017, I was hired as the assistant manager. In July 2020, which if you remember that time, that was a fun time for all. I took on the manager position for this program. Quick view of our agenda today. I'm going to just give you an overview of child nutrition programs. Big picture look at our program. We're going to look at some wins within the program. My crew knows that we talk about wins a lot, pain points, but also wins. We'll look at some of those. We'll look at our financials from the cash resources perspective and also negative balances. And then kind of a looking forward, what does the future look like in our program? And then I'm happy to answer any questions at any point, but for sure at the end if you have any. All right, just a quick overview of child nutrition programs, bird's eye view, if you will. So we are a federal program administered by the USDA. The quick synopsis is we receive reimbursement for the meals that we serve. I included in different colors there the price that we receive for a free priced meal. It's $4.25 for a lunch, and reduced $3.85, and a paid lunch we receive 40 cents from the federal government. I include that just so you can kind of see the difference between what we receive at a free meal and the difference between what we receive for reimbursement for reduced and paid meals. I'm gonna make you all experts in child nutrition programs tonight by teaching you three terms, if you will. So when we talk about reimbursable meals, that's a meal unit that meets all of our meal pattern requirements for each grade group. And then if you look at on the right, I've included a meal pattern for the National School Lunch Program. This is what we are required to offer in the quantities we are required to offer them daily and also on a weekly basis. So with a federal program comes a lot of federal regulations. You can see that we are required to offer a certain amount of fruits, vegetables, within that, a certain amount of subgroup vegetables, grains, meat alternate or protein, and milk every single day, every single meal, K through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12. We also are required to offer a certain amount of minimum and maximum calories at every single meal, a certain amount of saturated fat and sodium. And so I include that just to say, you know, I get feedback on or ideas, I guess, on what we could serve students, and we take all of that in, but also filter it through the fact that we have a lot of regulations that those meals have to fit within. I also included just a poster that you can see in one of our kitchens or cafeterias of what makes a lunch. And so this tells students that in order for you to have a reimbursable meal, so that you can go through the point of sale and we can claim those meals, you have to choose 3 components, and one of which must be a half cup fruit or vegetable. And this takes us to the offer versus serve piece. This is what we operate under, allows students to choose what they would like to take. And the thought process being, if they're able to make the choice, there potentially may be less waste. And that also goes along with when I talk about we have to have a half cup fruit or vegetable on every single tray that goes through for a reimbursable meal. That sometimes does go right along with the conversation of waste. I live with a 4-year-old, and there's you know, when the first time I may put broccoli on his plate, he may turn his nose up. The second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, eventually he might, you know, smell it, and then hopefully he'll take a bite of it. And so I think kind of the thought process being from the USDA is if we can continue to expose kids to these fruits and vegetables, eventually, hopefully they consume them. And so that is, that's the reality of our program, is they're required to have it on their tray, and the hope is that they eventually will consume it.
Where's the donuts go? What section is that under?
Kayla would love to talk to you about how those do not work. Yeah. So our program, big picture, I just wanted to include some fun facts, if you will. We have approximately 1,400 milk deliveries, and I just pulled some facts from a school year. We have 650-ish deliveries from our food and supply vendor in a school year. We get about 1,000 warehouse deliveries from our Rapid City Area School warehouse with food and supplies to our schools, and 2,000 deliveries from Central High School, which I'll talk more about this process, to our elementary schools. We spend about $200,000, over $200K on fresh produce a school year, just to kind of paint the picture as far as you know, the program in general. And then I did identify a couple pain points. It was a little rough there for a bit with staffing and hiring, as I'm sure you all are very familiar with. It's nothing that you all are new to, I guess, across the district as a whole. But we've worked pretty hard to get folks hired, and I'll talk a little bit about our open positions here in a little bit. I would say definitely has gotten a little bit better. Another pretty significant pain point has been outages and substitutions in the last 2 to 3 years. It's been real tough. I don't know if you've noticed when you go to the grocery store that there's maybe not as many eggs or milk on the shelves. So take that times, you know, 6,000 lunches a day. It's been difficult to get food in, and I'm literally knocking on wood as I say this. I'm almost scared to say it. It's gotten better. So very thankful for that. Okay, so just kind of getting into, I wanted to kind of show you guys a little bit about our program. Our mission, and we take it seriously, is we believe that we are more than just food service. We believe very strongly that what we do matters and makes an impact, not only on just putting food on a tray and feeding students, but also our staff know that they make a difference in students' lives, and we get the opportunity to see them often, you know, every single day. And that smile is, those kind words are just as important as the food that they get when they come through our line. You can see our belief statement, and it's something that we truly live by, listed up there, that we believe that what we do has an impact and we can create those extraordinary moments for our students. We also have my assistant manager, who you'll get to see in a little bit here. We talk a lot about feeding students. You know, that's very important. It's getting food in students' bellies so that they can learn is very important. I'm really trying to move us more from just feeding students to nourishing students. And so that's kind of that's the direction of where we're moving. Workplace culture I put up there. You can see, also I like pictures. So you're gonna see pictures throughout the whole presentation. All 25 slides, there's gonna be pictures. But workplace culture is very important in our department, in our department, and taken again seriously. I want folks to enjoy what they do, and we know that has a direct impact on the folks that they work with every single day, but then also the students. So I've got that's Alma at Wilson, and that's Destiny and Misty. They're two of our cooks over at Central High School. Okay, I'm gonna have you guys come on up quick. So our team, all of you, our team is composed of 4 office staff. So that's the central office staff that I have listed, and I think there we go. So Danielle is our procurement specialist. Kayla, who's gonna introduce herself, is our assistant manager. That's myself, and then Lisa is our administrative assistant. So here you can see your face. So scoot on over and talking to the mic, and then tell them who you are, what school you work for, and how long you've been here.
Sarah Staffney, I'm team lead at North Middle School, and I've been with the district 8 years.
You gotta let me, shuffle.
You can move the mic, the mic's.
Oh, sorry, the mic moves. Yeah, let's be smart. Okay, here we go.
I thought we were gonna play a game of. Hello, I'm Chris Lenhart, and I am on my 15th year with the district. I'm in my 3rd placement, which is East and Valley View. I've been at Dakota, and I've been at Beetle, and I'm on my 3rd boss. Krista. It's been Kayla for the last 3 months. But Krista.
Yep.
All right, Terry Crawford. I'm in my 11th year with the district. I have to tell you the story. It's funny because when I first started, I had the opportunity to stay with my kids for 9 years. Sorry, but anyways, I was on a walk one day and I thought about being a lunch lady. And then my son was 1st grade. And he goes, "Oh my gosh, Mom, you don't want to be a lunch lady. They're so mean." So needless to say, it's worked out wonderfully for me. I love it. And like I said, 11th year, I was at South Middle School for 9 years. And then I had the opportunity to move to Southwest and Corral, and totally happy with that move. It's been a great experience. Working with the small children, it's a blessing. They're super cool. They're really, really fun. We had our holiday sweaters on the other day and this little, I like your shirt. I said, well, thank you. I like yours as well. So those are the moments that really mean a lot. So, but thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kayla. I'm the assistant manager for the department, and I have been with the district coming up on 2 years now.
And Kayla just did my job for 3 months, so she's happy that I'm back, I think. Okay, thanks, guys. Okay, so you did just meet, you met 3 of our team leads. I do have 7 total. I couldn't bribe all of them to come here tonight. And then the majority of our group, I've included a picture there. That's from our latest PD day. We have about 60 team members, and as of yesterday, 10 open team member positions. Somehow got a flood of applicants and doing a lot of interviews this week, so hoping to decrease that number. Okay, a little bit about the program. We serve the 2 main programs that we operate are the National School Breakfast Program and the National School Lunch Program. Under both of those, I included our ADP, or our average daily participation for both of those. For breakfast, we're serving about 1,600 breakfasts per day, and for lunch, we're doing about 6,000 lunches per day. Our free reduced percentage across the district, is 39%, operate about a $5.6 million budget. And I always think this is a fun stat. We do about 1.5 million meals per school year. And then, that's why at the end of the school year, I tell my staff, are like, we're tired. I'm like, that is why. And we, again, have 7 production kitchens. I did want to give you guys a little bit of insight into, so production kitchen, meaning we have the kitchen attached to the school, the food comes in, it's prepped on site, it's served on site. The other almost half of our lunches that we serve are satellite elementary schools at 13 of our schools, and out of a central kitchen, meaning that they're sent out from that, they're prepped and sent out. It just happens to be also at Central High School. I'll go into that process a little bit next. So I've included an example of an elementary meal. This day was chicken and vegetable dumplings with broccoli, grapes, celery, and milk. And I always like to make sure that folks know that this process is more than meets the eye. So for this meal to get on this tray in that student's hands, there's a lot of work that goes into it. We pack, meaning get food in those hot packs, almost 3,000 meals at Central High School every single morning. The amount of time that takes, they're run on a conveyor belt. My staff are on both sides. They're putting food in the hot pack. They're then split up into heat seal machines and heat sealed and put into racks, and I'll show you a picture of that. But that takes some time. So those meals that are served the next day are actually packed the morning before. I moved this process from Stevens High School to Central High School fall of 2021, and that was kind of a big adjustment. We got 2 new machines, moved the whole process over there for a couple of reasons. The Central High School is more centrally located. And also the building is just set up better. It's not perfect. We're operating in a kitchen that's just designed to serve Central High School students, but making the best of what we have over there. It worked better than where it was. So then the next bullet, you can see fresh fruit and vegetables are sent out from Central High School with meals the morning of 9 a.m. So from 8:45 to 9 a.m., it's pretty quick at Central. The folks in our elementary schools are tallying up their lunch counts. They're sending them via email over to our staff at Central. Central, the day before, because they're packing their meals the day before, is doing their best guess using past data to pack what they think each school will need. But that being said, when the lunch count comes in, they're not always right. So they're pulling meals, they're adding on meals. And so between 8:45 and about 9:03, it's a real quick process to get meals out the door. And then our warehouse folks are taking those meals to all of the elementary schools. I have on there other items are ordered directly into the elementary schools from our warehouse, and I'll show you that in a second. Okay, again, so just some visuals, how food, well, I included a couple pictures of the lovely kitchens that we have in our elementary schools. So they're small. This one at South Canyon is actually one of the larger ones. It has an retherm oven and it has a milk cooler. This, like I said, is Randy is very thankful for the amount of storage space that she has. I have smaller kitchens that serve way more students than this. So the way food gets to a student at South Canyon is from the warehouse is one way. They're placing orders directly. The warehouse takes it from the warehouse to an elementary school. And then the other way, that's a picture of the belt room that I had talked about earlier over at Central High School. And they're putting food into those racks and then sending them out via warehouse truck, which is also on there. And so that's how food is getting, this is kind of one more, just a visual of the process. So you have the hot pack, you have your fresh fruits and vegetables that go with that day's meal, you have the milk that's stored on site, and that's the final piece there. And then I just included, that's my staff over at South Canyon, Randy, and I think a couple of her children and then some other students. Some other programs that we operate are the main two are the breakfast and lunch program, but then summer food service program would probably be the next largest, if you will. There's a couple partnerships that have been pretty great that have come just recently in the last few years within the summer food service program, one of which being Black Hills Area Community Foundation covers the cost of adults. So that's those 19 to 59 years old, accompanying their child to our sites. Black Hills Area Community Foundation will cover the cost of that adult meal, and then Meals on Wheels will cover the cost of those 60 plus with their grandchild at our meals. So my program we're about students, children, excuse me. And so that's who I can feed, but others within the community have stepped up, knowing that we can feed more kids if adults and those seniors needing meals come with them. And so those have been really great partnerships. Just to give you scope, so like I said, you can see that we do a lot fewer breakfasts and lunches during the summer. It's very quiet for us. We only do 3,500 breakfasts and 13,000 lunches. So that's cool, calm, and collected for us during the summer. We also operate the snack after school program and the fresh fruit and vegetable program. And then I included a picture of our food truck, which you maybe have seen out and about. The kids really enjoy that during the summer. Okay, I told you we would talk about some wins. So Farm to School has definitely been a win within the last couple of years. We have been able to purchase Black Hills Farmers Market produce. That, if you think about the growing season, and kind of how that aligns with when we start school, there's a little overlap. And so we really try and hit it hard, if you will, during the beginning of the school year to make sure that we can get as much Black Hills local produce into our schools as possible. They've worked really hard, which I appreciate, making the ordering process really simple for us. So they make it as easy that we can just these ladies can place their orders out of their kitchens and get this local produce into our schools. Here's an example of a poster that's in one of our on the line. It says today's locally grown romaine lettuce is brought to you by Sheldon Family Farms, which is located in Box Elder, 30 minutes from the serving line. So really just give students just a quick snippet of here's where your food is coming from, and I think they really appreciate that. I have one more point here that I didn't mention. I'm sorry. The really awesome thing that I guess about the program is that we require a lot more than what the farmers market is able to provide. And so we're going to continue to talk to producers and help them. We just serve way more than what they can. We run them out every time we get a place an order. And so hopefully we'll continue to be able to order more from them. Bobby, I don't think my video is going to work. So bummed about that, but that's okay. I did have the Raptor News was going to tell you about our hydroponic garden stands and our farm to school tours, but I can't get the video to work and I don't know why. So maybe I could send the link maybe after. It's really a cute deal that they do. They just talked about our hydroponic growers that we have over at East Middle School. Like Chris is the team lead over there and she's really kind of taken on, she's passionate about farm to school, local produce. And so we as in Kayla, I should stop saying we. Kayla wrote a grant for the hydroponic growers, and those are over at East last year growing. You see the produce that they were growing. There's 2 students over there that manage them, and then that was harvested, brought in a bowl to the cafeteria and served to students. We also did a kitchen tour called Local Producer Day, where we brought folks in, producers from all over Wyoming, South Dakota, et cetera, and brought them into the kitchens and showed them kind of our processes. Okay, something else that we're trying to work on is student feedback. We're always hoping to collect more feedback from students. The most recent that we have done is a survey to elementary students. We asked them their favorite lunch, their least favorite lunch, and something that you'd like to see that we don't serve now. We had 673 responses, so great feedback. Lots of feedback. Students would really like to see more steak offered.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Like the saturated fat could be a concern on that, but so again, just trying to, we want folks to participate. We want students to want to eat their lunch, and collecting feedback is one thing that we're trying to continue to do.
Out of curiosity, what was the least favorite?
Yeah, least favorite. I'm trying to think, nothing consistent. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was really a little all over the board.
Okay.
And I think what I did notice is I sorted them by school, and it seemed like what one student answered that was consistent through the whole rest of the students, kind of the same thing. If you're in the lunch line and you hear, I don't like that, or I do like that, then your neighbor does like that or doesn't like that. So, yeah. Sushi was also another request. I'll just put that in there. Yeah. Yeah, we'll get going on that. Yeah. So 2022-23 will forever be known in our office as the year of reviews. The first year that we did was the procurement review, and the reviewers look at all purchases from the past 5 years. They look at all purchases from the past 5 years, everything. Just to give you kind of an idea of timeline, we were notified in January that we were under the review, and April, we received our closeout letter. Pretty quick and easy, if you will, review. We had one corrective action, and actually it was reviewing the previous year. And by that time we got the corrective action, we had already corrected the process. So no financial implications. And we worked very, very closely with the business office during this process, and Peggy and crew made that way very easy on us. And so just shout out to the business office. Also, in the year of reviews, we also had our AR, or our administrative review. So state agencies assess compliance with the federal requirements of all aspects of your program if you're participating in the National School Lunch Program and the School Breakfast Program. Timeline here, it was a little bit of a long haul. November, we were notified of the review. January, we submitted all of our menu information. February, they came on site to 4 schools. They were at Wilson, Horace Mann, East, and Stevens High School. And they watch you serve breakfast, they watch you serve lunch, they make sure that your food safety is, your kitchens are clean, that you're identifying reimbursable meals correctly, that you're following meal pattern, et cetera. And then in May, finally, at the end of May, we received our closeout letter. And a few takeaways from that review. Every free and reduced price meal application for that school year was reviewed, and 0 were processed incorrectly. And that's a really big deal, because it's very important. And I have someone in my office, Lisa, who does this, that students are receiving the correct benefits of what they qualify for. At our on-site reviews at 4 schools, we had 0 corrective actions. Menus reviewed. Kayla, we were talking about this, and she had a physical reaction when I read this slide to her. We had 1 corrective action, and it still haunts her to this day, I think. But no financial implications from that review either. Okay, I just wanted to touch base quickly on our cash resources. So kind of the financial piece, if you will, of our program. Wanted to give a little bit of a background reg. So federal regulations do not allow cash reserves of more than 3 months operating expenses for programs to have on hand. And that's approximately $1.5 million for us. So in 2017, we're going to take a little trip back in history here. So 2017, 2018, the program had nearly $3 million in cash reserves. So 18-19 school year, the state mandated a spend down plan, which without going into too much detail, you can see where we were in 17-18, 18-19, slowly going down 19-20, and then between what I'm calling kind of an overcorrection of the state mandated spend down plan plus what was happening during 2020, COVID, it resulted in a depleted cash resources. So in 2020, 2021, the board approved a line of credit from the Health Reserve Fund. And I'm sure some of you remember this, at 1.25 million at 1.75% interest to be paid back within 24 months. And then you can see 21, 22, 22, 23, and where we're at now. So currently we are sitting at a little over $2 million. The loan has been since paid back in full plus interest. And I just had a couple notes on there that although we are a little bit over where we need to be, the cushion really is okay. November and December are lower claiming months. We have students in the buildings fewer days. And the state has also provided recently programs with some flexibility. So instead of that 3 months average expenditures on hand with a 1-year spend down plan, it's now 5 months average expenditures on hand with a 2-year spend down plan. So we're sitting okay there. All right, a look back at the last few years. You may have remembered, if you have students in the district, that back in 2019, 2020, we were feeding students at the free, reduced, and paid rate. 2020 through 2022, all meals were served to all students at no charge. And then 22, 23, we were back to the free, reduced, and paid rate. In short, we were normal, free for 2 school years, and then back to normal in 22, 23. A quick note here about participation. So participation is really the driving factor for our program. I just wanted to include, it kind of goes with the fact that we served meals at no charge to all students, and I wanted you guys to be able to see the difference. So breakfast, when meals were at no charge, we had the highest we'd ever served in a day was 4,607 breakfasts. And if you remember, we're now serving about 1,600 breakfasts per day. And then lunch, when meals were at no charge, the highest we ever did was in October 2021, and we served almost, didn't break it, but almost 8,000 lunches that day. And we're doing about 6,000 now. Just another example of there are impacts to our participation that are kind of outside of our control, if you will. One of which being, for example, if the elementary students go to something at the Civic Center, something at Monument, and another example being high school lunch participation. You can see we were almost doing, so I listed Stevens and Central, blue and red, that in 1819, we were serving over 1,000 students at lunch at Central High School, and now we're down to fewer than 600. And so just a point to say that there are impacts to our program and our participation at our schools. All right, I did include federal reimbursement rate comparisons, and again, I included multiple years just so you can, just to show you that there has been a change in the amount of reimbursement that we've received. So if you look at the yellow, that's the years that we were serving meals at no charge to all students, and those were relatively high reimbursements. You can see in 2021, we were serving breakfast at $2.30, almost 8 cents. And then in 21, 22, we were receiving $2.60 for breakfast. So then if you look at lunch, we were receiving $4.15 in 2021 and $4.56 per lunch in 21, 22. Now go all the way over to the right column there, 23, 24, you can see we receive 40 cents for a paid lunch, up to $4.25 for a free lunch. So there really is, that can have an impact on our program, is the reimbursement rates that the federal government puts out. And the reason I believe that there were those higher reimbursement rates during that time is fuel surcharges were out there, were a thing, outages and bid pricing, where we were seeing extreme increases on pricing of all of our food and supplies. Okay, next kind of piece about our financials is negative balance. So I wanted to lay out very clearly what we do. We continue to serve lunch to every student, regardless of their negative balance. Negative balance, also known as their student lunch debt, if you will. Meaning, when a child wants lunch, they go through our line. They have the same options as every other single student next to them. They're charged for this meal, and if they don't have the money in their account, that means that's adding to our department's negative balance. The bottom line being there is a cost associated with feeding all students lunch every single day. So the reason that I had pointed out kind of that big picture where we were normal, free, normal, families had to start refilling out free and reduced applications again in the 22-23 school year. So they went 2 years without completing applications. Then starting in the 22-23 school year, had to go back to filling out those applications. And so that really was a informational training piece to get families to, it's honestly can be difficult enough to get folks to complete applications, let alone when they hadn't done it for 2 years. And so that was a piece that we worked really hard to. Terry, she's sitting at her open house event, and we were trying to get information out to folks in any way, shape, or form. So back to school information that was sent to students, open houses. I did how-to videos on to how to complete an online app, how to complete a paper app, and then just emailing families. So I wanted to give you a brief kind of overview of what's happened since June, this past June, with our negative balance. I ended the 22-23 school year with a negative balance of $190,000, $190K. So it was really important to me that before I went to anyone asking for any donations to cover negative balance, because my funds I cannot use our cash balance to cover that, that I had done our due diligence to notify families as much as possible to ensure that those that could pay knew they had a negative balance and paid if they could. So that was through emails, phone calls. We spent a lot of time on the phone, our office this summer, and then my team leads when they came back of notifying folks. We wrote letters to people, and over the summer, we collected $80,000 in payments, which I feel like is a really big deal. So there was a lot of effort that was behind that. You may have seen this. This was a post on social media. So between the end of August till now, we have received $62,000 in donations, which is just it's amazing that the community has stepped up and sees that this is important. You can see that, and I'm sorry it's kind of small, but I'll read it. So we had an anonymous donor at Wilson, almost $6,000. Blackhawk Oil paid off Blackhawk Elementary and Pinedale for $8,000. We had an anonymous donor who matched our online fundraiser amount for $12,000. Stevens High School class of 1983 did almost $5,000. That we had someone match that at $5,000, and then Independent Assurance Agents has donated $25,000. I always do like to include, whenever I'm talking about negative balance, that and donations, that we're also really trying to encourage people to continue, if they believe they're going to qualify, to complete a free and reduced application, and also how to make a payment. Those conversations for me go hand in hand. Okay, so when we talk about negative balance, as far as like, what does that look like moving forward? What's in the works? You may have seen the Rapid City Public School Foundation's Fed and Ready to Learn campaign, and that's really, Kara and crew have been great in trying to continue to chip away at our negative balance. This week, staff within the district can participate in Jeans Week for $5. They can participate. That's a campaign that's going on within the district. The Public School Foundation has raised $27,000, which will be applied to our negative balance. And I listed a couple of larger donors throughout that campaign. So Rapid City Medical Clinic, Black Hills Energy, Dakota Radiology all donated $5,000 each. The Retired Enlisted Association, $2,000, and then other individual donations and businesses not over $2,000 to total that $27K. We also do have donations on our online fundraiser, approximately $15,000 that will also be applied. So I wanted to kind of quantify what's left. Negative balance after the above is applied, we're looking at $60,000, and this continues to accrue daily. Anything to add, Kara? No. Yeah. Checks can be made to the Student Nutrition Office, yeah. I did list negative balances by school. I think that's helpful information. You can see the blue is our elementary schools, so you can see the two higher, and this doesn't totally paint the picture because again, as you saw, some of them have been paid off. The two highest right now, Rapid Valley and Valley View Elementary, and then our middle schools are all around that $7,000 to $8,000, and over at Central High School, we've got almost a $22,000 negative balance. Wanted to just touch quickly on what's happening at the state level. So there has been Representative Caden Whitman has started a South Dakota School Lunch Coalition with also Representative Tyler Tordzen, Senator Liz Larson and Senator Michael Roll. And what they're looking at is, this is really just a group of folks that are getting together and passionate about feeding students and how we can do that at the state level. So the bill is potentially looking at covering the difference of kind of including reduced students, so they're now free, in short. So it really could be great for the not only programs and families, but also the Department of Ed, because it would encourage families to complete applications, and that's always kind of a struggle. That would be, they've estimated about $578,000 to cover the cost of reduced students. Okay, so looking forward, we will continue to dream about a real central kitchen and warehouse. It would not only increase operational efficiencies, storage capacities, food quality, we could also look at doing some increased scratch cooking and really just have a place that's set up to handle the processes that we do. We will continue to expand our farm to school and garden programs. We'll continue to get nutrition education into classrooms and then continue to look for ways to get student input. I have a dream of doing a food show. That's one of the bullets under there. And we go to food shows for our conferences that we go to, and there's all the vendors, and we get to taste all of the products, and then we put them on the menu. But ideally, students have that input, and so we bring vendors to them, and they get to do taste testing, and that's what ends up on the menu, is kind of a goal. Getting close here. Is anyone falling asleep yet? No? Okay. Okay, great. So quick note, this really what we do is a team effort. So whether it's whether we have someone in the lunchroom as a lunchroom assistant helper opening hot packs for students, or whether it's buildings and grounds folks helping wipe tables, or warehouse folks getting our food to where it needs to go, it really is a team effort. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that, acknowledge those people. I also have, as you can see, Food for Thought is our monthly newsletter, and I send it to you all. So I hope I hope you check it out and read it. It's not just me writing it, but these guys get to write. I was gonna say I make you, but yeah, I might, I don't know. Yeah, they willingly write articles for Food for Thought, and it's really just a great way to learn about our program, not just me coming here, but from their perspective on a monthly basis. And then I did want to invite you. So we have a couple things coming up. Our holiday meal is December 15th. That's Friday. I will be over at Central High School. We have a holiday meal at all of our schools, but I plan to be over there. We're going to have ham, mashed potatoes and gravy, stuffing, dinner roll, and cooking a cookie or pumpkin fluff, because we couldn't get the ingredients at all of our schools for the pumpkin fluff. But depending on what folks were able to get in, we'll be having that meal.
What time is that?
You know, when you want to go. Yeah, I get hungry at about 11, so.
I'm going to Central, I think. I haven't been there.
Okay, yeah, I would love to show you. I can introduce you to the folks over there. Let's 11 o'clock. Let's do it. And then our professional development day is coming up. Our next one, we have 4, where we get all of our staff together and learn and grow, is January 16th. And that will be from 8 to noon. And I can send you guys details on where that's located if you would like to come learn more about and meet some of our folks there. That's all I have for you. Did I make it in my 30 minutes? That's very important to me. I think I was close.
You were close, but that was good. I was completely enthralled.
Okay.
All right, any questions, board members? Mrs. Clapham.
One, thank you so much. I think our district is so fortunate to have you, just your energy, your passion, like it is catching, and we're so appreciative. And I have to say, even before I was a board member, of how responsive I knew Krista was, because my son complained because the paper menu would come home and then the next day it wouldn't be what he asked for. And he was really upset, like that it said pizza and he got there and it was not. And literally within a week, Krista had figured out how to put it online and you could click on it the night before. I mean, it was amazingly impressive. So just, you're so responsive and really appreciate that. Thinking about, we keep talking about, you know, potential bond. So you talked about the central kitchen and the storage issues at schools. Would, at a minimum, expanding space for storage, like would that be if you could write your Christmas list, and if would that be something that would make nutrition services better for our students, better, or would that be too much and you already are spread thin?
No, I don't, I think beggars can't be choosers, so I would take any increased student fees that I could get. But for example, if you do come over to Central, I would love to have you poke your head in the freezer over there. So if you can imagine the amount of cases that, and I don't have Amber here tonight, my team lead over there, but the amount of cases required to pack 3,000 meals, we are at max capacity. So any form of increased storage, whether that's actually connected to the space that we're serving or not, ideally it would be. I would very much appreciate that.
So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Swan.
Thank you, President Carr. That was a great presentation. Thank you, Krista.
Thanks.
I was kind of enthralled. I was like, Bishop Carr, where are the donuts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have a couple questions. In your farm to school program, is there any plans for using any buffalo or bison? I know some of the reservation schools have moved to that, and I've went down to Lower Brule and had lunch there, and I'll tell you that lunch at the school was really, really good with
Yeah.
bison.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts when you ask that question is right now we do not bring raw product into our kitchens. And so that would be step one, is moving towards being able to bring in raw product, having the SO standard operating procedure set, having all staff consistent and trained in how to prepare that food. And so not only would I be open to, we've had conversation, and this is a question that the producers asked me when they were in the kitchen. Not only would I be open to having things like beef, but also bison would definitely be, I think, something that the students would really be passionate about.
The second, Mayor, thank you for your answer. The other one is, I did a lot of work with General Beetle, and I just went, and I went over to the Wachipi last week on Friday. And the thing that really kind of breaks my heart is that General Beetle's kitchen is almost state of the art and not staffed. Are there any plans for that?
So to back up, I'll kind of explain what you're seeing. So 2 years ago, I want to say, we did have a team lead, and because it is a production kitchen over there, as you've seen, we had a team lead and a staff of 4 or 5 people over there. And it honestly, I was on a phone call with Coy, and I said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, staffing wise, serve meals. We kind of got to that point where we were so short staffed, it came down to having to make some very serious adjustments. And so one of which being, and it honestly has freed up and saved us a little bit, if you will, staffing wise, is moving that from having a team lead and employees, multiple employees there, to being able to disperse those folks. And so when I had those hard conversations with the people there, it has always been that I would like to continue moving it back, to being a production kitchen. And so having a team lead and having folks in there, it's not, and I don't feel like I can justify doing it when I have 10 open positions already. And so that's really been the tough piece of Beetle's staffing situation.
It is on your radar though.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Thomas.
So I bet that there would be a lot of people pretty jealous of Southwest's kitchen as well. I was in there today and that was a dream kitchen. When you were mentioning I guess the health inspection? Is that
part of our administrative review? They do
that
sort of look, yeah, we have health inspectors that come twice a year also.
Other than those assessments that were there, is that similar to restaurants in town, like once a year or out of nowhere, we're coming?
We know they come. We're very proud of our scores. My folks don't usually get less than 100s, and I've seen scores on places around town, and that's not always the case. So yes, the same in the sense that they come in. Not always, our ladies pride themselves on.
Yeah. Yeah.
5 minutes before serving time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't, honestly, I think the lowest we've gotten in a while is a 98. And I mentioned that because it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's something to be very proud of,
Yes.
for sure. because not many restaurants do get that. What else was I gonna say? Oh, I remember when you came in and
Oh.
it was down at CSAC and
Yeah.
I was a board member then, and I am just very grateful for the past trials and tribulations you have really gone through and obviously your staff as well, working really well to get back up to where, I mean, that what we're facing right now is meals not being paid for, but you having to borrow that money, paying it back, just amazing. And I'm very glad that you're still.
You
here
were
with
there,
us.
yeah.
I was.
I remember,
I think I
you
was brand
remember,
new.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Baker.
I just want to, I think you're a rock star.
Oh, no, I
Your
have rock star
staff,
people.
I think you guys are
Oh.
just amazing and your presentation was off the charts amazing. And
Oh, thanks.
We are very fortunate to have you. You are an asset like none I've seen, so.
I'm turning red. Thank
you
you
for all
for
you
saying
do.
that. I'm gonna go crawl away from this
Oh.
microphone now.
Oh, and real quick, the donuts, I've saw them in a different classroom at Southwest.
Oh, okay. They're whole grain. They're not as good as what you can get somewhere else. Yeah.
All right, anybody else? I too want to thank you and your staff for all the hard work for the presentation. One thing that came to mind, the district has land. How, well, in my mind, it would be extensive, but just the thought of having an official garden or
Yeah.
not farm is animals, right? I'm a city boy, so I don't, farm, you could, yeah, I mean, cause the district does have land that would be a great use. And I mean, how great would it be to have fruits and vegetables on district property for the kids? I mean, it would just be neat. Not quite sure how extensive that would be, plus with staffing and yada,
Right.
yada, but is that?
So my crew had the opportunity to tour WDT and they've got a really extensive aquaponic fish. But is it called a hoop house? Greenhouse, excuse me.
Okay.
Yes, and so that was eye-opening to see that and that kind of got everyone's, minds going, well, what could we do?
Correct, yeah.
So definitely something that's on our radar.
Awesome. And I'm, one of the advantages of these study sessions is that it puts things on the radar of the board that might not have been there. And Ms. Clapham talked about, the bond, and that would be an awesome project that would affect not just one school, but the whole district, and something that's needed, it's easy to understand. I mean, who can't understand a kitchen and food and feeding kids? And so I think I might swap out my sports complex.
I'm down.
for-
That sounds great. I'm so
for
glad
a
I was
new
asked to be,
kitchen.
yeah.
Maybe that'll be, central kitchen. All right, central kitchen.
Tori and I will meet tomorrow to discuss
Yes.
this further. Yeah.
But yeah, but it goes to show you that some things aren't on our radar, and when we have these study sessions and we hear about a need, that allows us to put that in our brains, like, yeah, that is an important need for the district. So thank you for that. All right, Mrs. Stephenson.
President Carr, I was just thinking, well, he better be careful because everybody's gonna come here.
Yeah, ask for
Every
something.
department's gonna- But then I
Yeah.
actually thought that wouldn't be that
That's not a
bad,
bad
right?
thing.
If we got to hear what everybody's wish list would be, not the end of the world. Krista, my question, I just thought of it because I wanna know, when my kid was younger in elementary school, they got an afternoon fresh fruit snack every
Yeah.
day. And it seems to have gone away. Was that just a federal program that the money disappeared?
We still offer after school, snack after school.
Oh, this was just brought to her classroom during the day. So
Yeah.
Here's a box. in
What
the-
school? I wonder. what
She's at
school?
Wilson.
Okay. Are we still operating FFVP at Wilson? Yeah, so I'm not sure. She's not getting it.
Okay, so the second kid
Okay.
doesn't eat as much as the first kid.
Okay.
So she just never talks. I've
She
never heard her talk about it.
Should still.
Okay, I'll ask her. I just,
I know what.
Okay, yeah.
okay, all right, then I'm positive she is. Ignore
Christine,
my
if we were
question.
towards the end of the school year, I would maybe go, maybe we have, because you only have an allotted amount of funding. And then we try and stretch that, my team lead that oversees that tries to stretch it out as long as, through the whole school year. And sometimes towards the end of the school year, that funding is no longer there. And so if we were, April 25th or middle of May, I'd say, oh, maybe, that would be the case, but I would assume that she's getting it. Yeah.
She's just not eating it.
Okay.
Okay, well, is that federal funding or a grant or?
State, federal, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Right. Wonderful. Any other board members? All right, seeing none. Thank you so very much.
Thank
for the
you.
presentation.
Thank you, Bishop Carter. Do you want to take a quick 2-minute break while Mr. Sargent sets up?
We need a break? Anybody need a break?
You're
All right,
good.
let's,
Okay.
let's have a 2-minute stretch.
2-minute stretch.
We are back from recess, and at this time, we're in a presentation of school safety by Mr. Matt Sargent.
Good evening, board. Thank you for having me. My presentation will not be quite as riveting as Christina. Outstanding for nutrition,
Yeah.
a topic that you wouldn't think would be that captivating, but it absolutely was. And, but with you, President Carr, I would prefer the donuts.
Yeah.
This. Absolutely it is. This position started in August of this year. So in this time, it's been kind of a whirlwind and baptism by fire, so to speak, on what I see needs to be done, working with principals, staff members, the superintendent's office, Coy, Corey, Dr. Strasser, and everybody. So we've really hit the ground running. Areas of focus so far this year have been school visits, community relations manager. I mean, communication is a huge, huge factor in this. South Dakota Safety Center, through the Department of Public Safety, Department of Homeland Security, working with facilities, student support services, security training, and crisis plans. And that is just the surface of what I've been doing so far this year. By September 12th, I visited all 23 schools. I've conducted traffic summaries for all schools, focusing on drop off and pickup. Some of our schools' traffic flow is a major concern, and we actually have had students hit by cars, not necessarily on our property yet this year. And I do say yet, but these are concerns that I have because we don't want our kids hurt. I've reviewed emergency plans and then created the emergency binders. One of the big things that when I got into this position, I started pulling floor plans, and some of the most recent floor plans we had were for buildings from the late 60s, early 70s. That has been remedied through the help of facilities, and we are we're working with an architectural firm in town, and I am starting to receive current updated floor plans as we speak. The plan is to put all this information into a single document. So in the event of a crisis where we have it and we know what's going on. Throughout all my visit, I want to back up I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Through my visits with all 23 schools this year, we have determined a lot of school needs per the administration principal, and then what I see is also some important needs. This is, I know, difficult to read, but it is a safety assessment score sheet. We were able to do walkthroughs of all of our buildings and give a score for the 10 most important items, 1 through 3, and where our schools are lining up at. This one's going to be difficult to read, and I do apologize for that. But to get this much information, we really needed to put it on a single slide.
We'll get you a copy.
Yeah.
For a elementary school in this situation, they have a top score of 30. For the high school, the top score would be 33, and that is counting individual security personnel.
So do you want a high score or a low score?
You want a higher
You
score.
want a higher score. Okay. No, 30.
30 would be a top score.
30.
You will notice some of the individual scores for individual items or part of the top 10 have asterisks by them. That means there is something in the process. For example, there is an elementary school in our district that has some radio communication problems. We're fixing that through a repeater system. This is all done through capital outlay, and the radio systems are starting to work now. One of the biggest challenges I had so far was because of the size of this district, it's a very large district, is communication flow. What happens in the event of an emergency or a crisis? And what we did is we created a Gantt chart basically for information flow to make sure this information is going to the parties that need to have it. As you can see, and we titled it for this point, Threat Info Received. And this is really how it started. There was a threat to one of our schools. It made the media, and it actually wasn't our school. It was a central high school in Tennessee. But we found out about it several days after the fact. Since we've started to work with this document, information is flowing a lot smoother, and information is getting out to the parties, the superintendent's office, community relations, so people know what's going on in a more efficient and timely manner.
Mr. Sergeant, as we talk about communication, sometimes parents are, whatever adjective, that they didn't know in enough time what's happening. Where is that communication in this chart to parents, and how do you feel about when parents should be informed of a situation? Because I understand that obviously a parent, if it's an active situation, you may or may not be able to inform parents right then. So just kind of talk about where parents get informed if there's a crisis.
Absolutely. Right out of the gate, once this information gets to the community relations manager,
Okay, all right.
we are going to start to brief staff, if that's a possibility. We're gonna start to brief the district, i.e. you guys as well. And then that information is going out, I wouldn't say simultaneously, but very, very close. We're putting out through a press release. And that's one of the things that we've been doing in our situations here in this district so far this school year.
I would say that maybe we can add onto this chart a community piece. Press release is part of it, but we're also working with Bobby's office to send out emails and the phone dialer, school messenger at that time as well. There seems to be some community concern about should the whole district and all families be communicated with, or should it be funneled into a building? And that is a really a tough call to make. Obviously, the building parents and community around that need to know. Personal preference of what people at other buildings would like to know. It's kind of a call that we make in my office, whether or not we're going to put everything out. Bobby and I, Mr. Sergeant, will talk, other people, and we'll determine if we think it needs to go district and citywide, or if it needs to be, building centered. What we don't want to do is we don't want to cause a rush of people to a scene or to a school. We definitely take advice from law enforcement as well. Many times we are providing a joint press release. So Bobby will be working with the community relations people at the police department or the city or the sheriff's office. And we'll release something jointly, but we're most likely going to let the immediate school staff and families know before that.
Yeah. I think my point is just to communicate to the community that information is also a part of safety. So depending on the incident, it may not be safe to release information at a certain point. So that's kind of my point. Parents are like, well, how come I didn't know, right when it happened? Well, based on each incident, there are some safety points that have to be considered before then that information is released.
So most of these situations are very fluid. It is nonstop action, and that is one of the reasons that we don't have general public yet.
Yes.
We're still fine tuning this realm, so to speak. However, we want to make sure we're notifying the public as timely or as efficiently as we can. And that's one of the reasons we have such a good relationship with the police department and the sheriff's office and their public information officers.
Okay.
And I can tell you, Bobby has worked with Brandon Medina since I've been here now 3 months, constant. And what I don't want to do is say, hey, there's a situation at school A, and then next thing you know, we have everybody going to school A and the emergency responders can't get to school A that need to be there.
Exactly.
So yes, this is a definite walking on a tightrope or a razor blade, however you want to put it.
Yes.
But on the flip side, as a former parent of a student here, I want to know what's going on as well. So I truly understand where the community aspect comes into this. And that's one of those things we are constantly, all right, are we ready? Should this information go out? Okay, let's just wait just a little bit. We got some information coming in.
Sure.
Boom, then it goes out.
You know, I would say this is one of the instances like Mr. Pfeiffer talked about at the beginning. We absolutely do not hoard information and try to keep things secret. And we want to put it out there as soon as it is appropriate. But we are listening to the people who are knowledgeable and they're guiding us through this process. I think communication wise, I don't know that we have ever scored 100%. So Krista should get a shout out because she's getting hundreds from the state. And I don't think we've ever scored a 100 on our communication. It's a no-win like snow days. Somebody's always going to find fault with when you released it, who you released it to, what it was said. And of course, we're in 2023, so student devices are notifying sometimes people outside and the students don't have the whole story. So we also have to be very careful that we are acting on fact and not things that are not found out to be true.
The big thing with this is to fix internal communication, because it doesn't matter how good our external communication is, if we don't have good internal communication, we're still not gonna have that information to put out to the public anyway. So that's what we're trying to really do, is to make sure everyone knows, i.e. you guys as well, what is going on in our building in the event of a crisis or an emergency. I've had the privilege to work with Brett Garland for 20+ years. I've gone to different trainings with him when we were both law enforcement. And he is the director of school safety for the state of South Dakota. And I have worked with him most recently on the 23 assessments he did back in 2002. He was able to get me copies of everything so I could review them myself. Yeah, I'm sorry, 2022. And I've been able to read them. I've also been able to compare them to, unfortunately, memory, because I don't know where the documents were from 2014 when I was part of the team that did them here in this district. And there are some things that we're working on to get our schools, what I call, in a better shape as far as safety goes. And having this resource with the state of South Dakota, the actual state itself, is huge. To include, we have also done 2 more assessments since then, since my time, our Lincoln building and our Jefferson building. So now all buildings except for one, this building have been done. We are working with the Department of Homeland Security for this building because this building's got a unique entity because it's twofold with the YMCA. Speaking of Department of Homeland Security, I have had, again, the privilege to work with Scott Davis and Brad Eggers for 25+ years. They were Mount Rushmore law enforcement before they transitioned into the Department of Homeland Security. Scott and I were on the assessment team back in 2014 through 2019. And Scott now is the supervising agent for the state. We have already done an open air assessment of Sioux Park, which hasn't been done yet. And I think that's kind of that's a big deal. Having this information so we know what's going on when our students and families are out at those facilities. We are working with the School of Mines right now on O'Hara Stadium for football games and such. However, there is some difficulties with the Freedom of Information Act and different sunshine laws. They're not ready for this yet. And unfortunately, it's their facility. Even though we may pay rent to use it, it's their facility, they have the final say. But we're getting closer to them saying, please go do it. It's free, so.
Does that mean we're doing a FOIA?
No, we're doing the assessment, but the FOIA laws are coming into play where they're not so sure they want it done because then people can request the information.
But if we had our own facility, just saying. Just saying.
Here's been kind of my pride and joy with this district so far is working with Jay Clement from facilities. Jay does tell me no on occasion, but he also says yes a lot. We have been working very closely on building improvement through safety while maintaining an educational facility. That's the big thing. Keeping kids learning, keeping kids in a school, not a correctional facility, because we don't want our schools to look like jail cells. I have been on not only my inspections, but now I'm going with him on his inspections to get his viewpoint on things as well. And this falls into the strategic plan, our pillars of facilities, communication, student safety, staff safety, and then community safety, especially when they're at our facilities for different events, whether it's band, drama, sports. These are things that we really still need to focus on and plan on. In addition, I'm working very closely with Tom Stewart. He is the student support manager. One of the big things that comes to my office or his office as well is STAR reports, the school threat assessment and response. Some of these lead to school discipline, significant school discipline. And when it comes into that, where an analysis or a threat assessment needs to be done, he'll call me, pull me in, and I'll start looking at the information that I have at hand. And does this need to go further? I do have threat analysis training, so that is some of the things that I am doing. Security staff. We have currently 6 at Stevens, 5 at Central, I'm sorry, soon to be 6. Actually, it's 5 and 5. We're 1 short on each, and then 2 at the academy. One of the things that has been brought to my attention is they want more training. They want better training, and that's something we can provide. Some of the training topics we're looking at is target analysis through gang identification. We can utilize our SROs for this. I've already talked to Brian Pitts from the police department, and there are SROs who are gang trainers. Weapon detection through security. Same thing. We're going to be using our SROs who've gone through this training to teach our staff. De-escalation techniques. In my time, we called it verbal judo. How to de-escalate through words without creating conflict. Now it's the 10 powerful strategies. I have actually read most of this book. I just received it about a week ago, and it's actually pretty good. Rich Holt from Stevens, former law enforcement, former senior officer, wants to put a training together for his team at Stevens and then actually teach this book to everyone else. Since then, we've ordered 20 books for this staff and updating our security team with this. We'll still put on the training, but we're going to put the training on for all of our security staff. Personality changes. This is another training that we need to look at doing. This is something I can do, and it is drastic personality changes. What is going on in someone's life? These are things to look at, and I can go into detail maybe in an executive session of why this is so important. Then the last is something we already started is stress mitigation during emergencies. Stress inoculation, we're starting to do that with our teachers through their personal development day. We just had that training. I did a video for them. I've had really good feedback. Then lastly, the Sentinel bill isn't just firearms training. The Sentinel bill also has a very large medical piece. And I have contacted an officer, a lieutenant who teaches that and asked him, what can you do for my staff if I'm not sending them to peer? And he goes, I can do a 2, a 4, and an 8-hour training on emergency medicine, what we call our street medic type training that law enforcement gets for our security staff to get them up to speed. Basic first aid, CPR, bloodborne pathogens, and training such as that. And again, this one comes at a no cost. So these are things that we're starting to look at for March in our personal development day for the security staff. And a lot of this is moving very quickly. Lastly, the crisis management plan that we are using throughout the district. Really good. There's some things to tweak and clean up, and then continuity between our district. I understand that some of our schools have some significant differences, but overall, this whole topic of crisis management and basically a curriculum on how to deal with it should be as similar as possible, because one, we have a lot of traveling teachers. We have traveling staff that go to building to building to building. So we're gonna kind of clean it up and then get it back out to staff so they can look at it and then give me feedback back. So I understand what they're saying and they understand what I'm saying, because I want it both ways. Just because I'm the safety guy doesn't mean I know it all. I want to hear what they have to say. Questions? I hit a lot of information in a very short period of time, and I do apologize for that, but please.
No, that was great too. I think we batted 1,000. Is that what it is? Is that good? Batting 1,000? All right, Mrs. Stephenson.
It has been a very good study session. I have learned so much. Thank you to everybody, including you, Mr. Sargent. I had 2 questions. The 10 powerful strategies in that training, is that something that could also be, or is it appropriate to offer to teachers or paras or other staff so that they too have de-escalation strategies?
I don't know if you can tell by my smile, but I've been working with Valerie Seal, Dr. Valerie Seals on this. And when they wanted to order the books right away. And I said, let me look into this. And they ordered one, and I had a chance to read most of it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I've been a cop for a long time and I'm back in the game a little bit. This is really good information. And yes, I think it is something that would be good for teachers. Absolutely. It's just another tool in their toolbox. I think it's great. This is just one of the things, and unfortunately, my paradigm, my focus is the security staff and working with them to get them the information and the training they need to deal with situations in in a peaceful manner is what we want.
Yeah, I could definitely see if I were a principal at a middle school wanting some de-escalation strategies, Then the other thing that that has been brought to my attention or that I thought about is, I don't remember, somebody told me, like, these kids will open doors anytime to anybody. You told me that. That was part of one of the state findings. And I responded that as a parent, if somebody asked me to educate my kid, now remember, when you're at school, anybody who gets let into the door or wants to get let in the door, you just point them to the front door. If somebody had told me that, I would do that. I've done that now because now I know. But should we be doing parent safety nights at schools? Should we be communicating to families in ways to say, also, the other thing, when I get a text that says that my kid's on lockdown, I mean, I don't know, what's the appropriate response? What do you want a parent to do? I don't do anything except, quietly freak out and wait for the text that comes back and says, it's all clear. But is there some parent education that could help us be, that overall could help us be a safer district?
I think that would be very good. One of the things about the doors being propped open or piggybacking or open doors, when I did my 23 visits, we had conversation about that because that is one of the biggest ways for people we don't want in our buildings to get in our buildings is someone letting them in. And so we've talked with principal staff and principal staff has talked with their teachers and teachers have talked with their students. Now, do some things get lost in translation? Very possible, but this is something we are going to continue to push. Let's start getting these things done. Start talking to your staff, start talking to your students. Don't open the doors for people. Some of the most basic, one of the most basic things, and I didn't talk about grants at all in this, even though we do have a lot of things going on. Internal door locks. Having the ability to gross motor skill, lock your door from the inside. We're working on that. And if you, I'm sorry, I do apologize. I coached wrestling Friday and Saturday. Then I took lunch today, went to LNI, coached wrestling again. And I'm not a quiet guy when I coach wrestling. I coached the girls team and Stevens did amazing. I'm very proud of my girls, but my throat hurts really, really bad.
Oh, you got one.
Yeah, and I've been getting cough drops. So, but that is part of the communication piece. From superintendent's office, board of directors, all the way down to our youngest student. This information needs to be communicated and this piece needs to be communicated on a regular basis. NASRA will tell you the number one way to keep your building safe is to have internal door locks. That is key. That's number one. And that's stuff we're working on. If you go and look at the spreadsheet that I did, even though it's difficult to read, you will see that we looked at all of these classes, all of these schools. And that's one of the things that we're lacking.
Right, was that?
That's
was
great.
that you?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Mrs. Clapham.
Thank you so much. One of the things that, I appreciate in this presentation, just as a globally talking about, it really is so encouraging to me to hear just the collaboration that's happening with leadership, with you and with Jade. And, I will say I've had the pleasure, I'm kind of pesky, so I have knocked on Jade's door and Mr. Sargent's door, and they always are so welcoming to me and answer questions and are so open, and I'm so appreciative of that. I wondered, so you talked about the floor plans, and Superintendent Swager and I were in just a brief session on security at the conference in August, and they talked about law enforcement having access to the floor plans. Does our local law enforcement have those floor plans, or are they not to that state yet? Because I know you said they needed to be updated, so.
So they have outdated floor plans with room numbers that are wrong.
Got it.
And that was actually a request that was put in last year and didn't get action. So that's one of the things I tasked Mr. Sargent with almost immediately. I mean, just this information in 3 short months is pretty incredible.
Awesome.
Give us a year, give Mr. Sargent a year to come back and be able to fully report back. But we are working on that. It has been a big ask. It took Mr. Sargent and Mr. Clement to get into position to make this happen. And they are both doing a tremendous job at that.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? Mr. Swan?
Thank you, President Carr. Thank you, Matt. That was a great presentation. Again, not as riveting, but it was great. One of the things I
I'll
want
bring
to,
donuts next time.
yeah, that'd be great. One thing I would like to rat out, Mrs. Thomas, she did piggyback in with me tonight, so I'm just saying.
Use your own phone.
Yeah, I know.
I can see where the training is gonna need to start.
Yeah, Yes, thank
I think it's safe to let somebody you know is coming here. The problem is at the schools, they don't know me. And they'll just, I can go to any door, I'll be fobbing in and they'll just open it and let me in regardless. I've talked to students like, thank you very much, but you should let me key myself in. It's South Dakota, we are friendly people. And I think that our students have been raised that way, but there's a time and a place where we need to say, it's okay to be rude. It's okay to make people walk the extra 50 yards to get into the correct door or call or whatever. But we have great kids and they just are friendly. Just come on in.
One of the things I noticed on there, and I'll share a story first, is that, you know, we talked about so many different languages that are coming into our district now. And then culture comes with that. You know, so we're going to, one of the things I didn't see on your slide was maybe cultural training. The reason I bring this up is that, you know, one of the most important cultural trainings that we went through is when I first got to General Beetle and we were sitting there and we went through cultural training and Dr. Gillespie had kind of pushed me to the front and said, hey, can you help me out with this? And we had a paraprofessional. She came out. And one of the teacher's comments were at that time was, you know, Lakota parents seem so rude. They don't talk to you. You know, they don't interact with you. They don't come up and say hi. They don't do all of this. Well, I was getting ready to, you know, to respond, and one of our paraprofessionals stood up and she said, I'm Lakota. She says, I want to speak to you on behalf of the parents. She says, parents are not going to speak to you first because in our culture, you hold more respect than us, than we do as a teacher holding a degree and being in charge of kids. It's your job to talk to me, that your words are more important than mine. And so that went miles in our cultural relationship with Lakota families. Our teachers now knew that they were the ones that were holding the respect, that it was their job to, you know, start the interaction. So
I'm glad you brought that up.
So that's the piece that I really want to, that just those little tidbits of culture goes so far.
So-
And I want to make a plea for this cultural training to happen.
We are actually talking about that as we speak. That didn't make this list simply for the fact that cultural awareness is a bigger picture than the security topics here. This is a bigger process and we're looking through with, oh my goodness, I forget the assistant principal at Central, but I'm working with Tim Amos he's security at Central, Rich Holt again at Stevens. And we want to put this together, but we do want cultural awareness. That is a very, very big part because it will help with possible de-escalation techniques on how to communicate with people. Because ultimately that's what this whole thing is about. How do I communicate with people effectively without insulting, without hurting? And those are the key factors. I'm really glad Walt you brought that, or Mr. Swan. I'm really glad you brought that up because that is something that we're looking at. And this is going to be a little bit bigger than what you see on the screen.
I would also like to say that I have talked to Jen Strong and Ira in the federal programs office. And as we have approached these floating PD days, and it works differently with hourly staff, we have talked about bringing in some cultural training for our paraprofessionals and our secretaries that have to work on those floating PD days. That would be an ideal time. Students aren't in the buildings. They would have an opportunity to get paid for that work. And so I've tasked that office with coming up with some things, and we could certainly invite the security guards to that as well. But it is something that we also need to look at for teaching staff in our before school training days. There's so much work to do in this, but I think I was a part of the training that we had in the district years ago. We had secretaries go down to a training at the Journey Museum actually and take some training in cultural understanding. And we just need to revisit that. We've had such a big turnover. So thank you for bringing that to the top of my list again.
All right, Mr. Berkeley.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for all of that information, but particularly, it made me feel a lot better about the way we're tackling this. Specifically, the one, it's kind of an offhand comment, but it really stuck with me was we don't want our schools to look like correctional facilities. That has always been a struggle for me with school safety is because obviously I want to keep the kids safe, but especially I used to work at Central. I know a lot of those kids would not come to school if we had a cop on every corner. And so I really just want to say that I appreciate that that is a mindset that we are taking towards these school safety discussions.
That is one of the mindsets I've had when I was an SRO back when I had a little bit of hair and then an SRO supervisor. I want our kids, I told my SROs, don't be a cop. That's secondary. I coach sports. I taught classes. One of my favorite things to do was to teach constitutional law in the classroom and having 2 or 3 people that were incredibly intelligent go. Because I would say, get your phones out, put them on your desk so you can make sure Matt Sargent is correct. And they'd pull it out and they'd start arguing with me. And it was such a rapport builder. And that's one of those things that I look for. I want to build rapport. I want to build relationships. When you have better relationships, you have less problems because people are more willing to communicate. And if you've noticed a theme in what I've been talking about, the big thing is communication. My wife will tell you, I don't ever shut up. And this is one of those times. I could keep going and going about all the things we've done so far. This is just scratching the surface. I just want people to be able to come to me, talk to me about what they see as their problems. And then I can go back and try and figure out how to avert that. One of the big things we're looking at is, of all things, fencing gates. So we have a school that has a fence all the way around it. And if you look at your spreadsheet, not many of them have it all the way around. But how does an elementary school teacher get children out of that area in a quick and efficient manner in the event of a crisis if there's no gate for them to go through? Something as simple as that. And that was brought to my attention. That wasn't my idea, by a principal, by just talking, sitting down, having a cup of coffee, talking. And I'm like, oh my God, why didn't I ever think of that? So communication is going to be a big factor and you will see that from me.
All right, Ms. Baker.
Well, I kind of think you're a rock star too.
Yeah.
I have a question though. One of the things that we talked about was security in the high schools. We have a ton of behavioral issues in the middle schools. Why is there not security in the middle schools? Is there gonna be, is that a plan going forward? It's kind of a two-part question.
It is, we would like to have the ability to have security, but pot of money, how far it spreads. There is a new grant that I have a meeting with our grant company tomorrow to look at writing for the Department of Homeland and Safety has a grant through the Department of Education, South Dakota office, and Bill is really excited about that. So I'll be meeting with him tomorrow afternoon at 1:30. We're going to talk about writing for that grant. Coy will tell you that he hates grants that hire employees that are not on, that the grant money is not ongoing. But if we can take some funds to do cameras, then we can take the money that we have in ongoing money for cameras and that type of thing and use that for staffing. So, there's ways that we need to talk about how we're budgeting and financing. And yes, Coy, that would take a capital outlay transfer. I understand that. I do know what I'm speaking about. But as we look at these grants, We just have received information. We did receive a $500,000 COPS grant. And Mr. Sargent has meetings starting with that work. We hope to follow up on opportunities for additional grants. And we do recognize that with behavior issues, the right security people in buildings that are going to do the rapport building and the relationship building and keep our school safe by not making it a correctional facility. Those are all things that we're working on as a district. So thank you very much, Deb, for bringing that up.
I have another question then. Would it be possible to possibly borrow like one from Stevens and one from Central just to have a presence every now and then, just so that they know that they're, so maybe just that, so they know that there's somebody there? I mean, not maybe full-time, but a couple days a week.
You know, we can look at that. I would just, the Stevens and Central are already operating down one security person each. And those campuses are so large with so many students, and those security people have rotations and they're places they're supposed to be. And so if they're not there because we're sending them part-time to someplace else, the good thing is all of our middle schools do have SROs there. So there is, it's not like we don't have any presence there. Many of them have deans of students as well. So there's work. There's definitely work that we can do. Obviously, I'm a big build relationships with kids and that does help with behavior. And we need to work on that, but we're getting started 3 months in. Give us a little time.
Well, I think you've done awesome for 3 months. I love going around with you. It's fun. So.
Well, I appreciate that. And just so everyone's aware, North Middle School has 1.5 SROs. East Middle School has 1.5 SROs. And they are constantly moving around to make sure they have as much coverage as possible, to include Rapid City Police Department has one single SRO assigned to the North Elementary schools, and he floats everywhere. So we are covered better, but I totally understand what you're saying. It would be nice. But looking at it from a staffing situation right now, that is very, very difficult at this moment.
Anybody else? Just for a personal note, this is a proud moment for me and something that I'd like the community to know. One of the things that I said when I first got on the board, that one of my goals is to leave this district better when I leave than when I came. And if I was a narcissistic person, I would say this is all because of me. But since I don't have that personality, I would say I would just like to thank Mrs. Swaggart for her response to my concern about our safety issues. She got right on it. She hired this position. This is the first time we've had this position in the district, and it's kind of sad that it's taken this long, because of all the school shootings and school situations, you would think a district of this size would have this position. But I just want to personally thank you for rolling with this, for getting hiring a wonderful person for this position, and to you, Mr. Sargent, for hitting the ground running and getting us to the point that we're at now with the future in sight in making our district a safer place. So thank you so very much. All right, anything else? Anybody else? All right, wonderful. I'm excited about these three study sessions. But at this time, I will entertain a motion to enter into executive session SDCL 1-25-2-.1. Speaking of public officer and employees. Do I have that motion? Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Second Vice President. I appreciate you helping me out here. All right, any other?
I had a brief.
Okay, go ahead. No problem.
I wanted to throw out there we pushed back the middle school rezoning to the middle of January with a explicit or maybe implicit promise that we would be open to hearing more from, or that we would open ourselves up to more comments. And I wanted to propose, are we willing to do maybe a Zoom public hearing where we just have people tell us what they think? I think we owe it to the public to listen. And as you said, President Carr, I don't know that we're gonna be, I don't know where the flexibility is, but I'd like to hear more input before we make that vote.
All right, so what Ms. Stephenson is talking about, at our last regular meeting, we had made a commitment to push back the vote on the south part of the rezoning in order to, well, specifically, we said in January between, we vote on it around January, but we made a commitment to the community that we would use some type of format to hear their input.
So thank you, Christine and Bishop Carr. Because of the holidays, and I mean, I think that's another good reason to push that back. On January 2nd, Coy will be in charge of that meeting because I will not be in town. But he will bring information back to the district, back to the board in an information piece. And at that time, we'll set up a method of getting feedback from the community via Zoom. I think Zoom is a really good way to do that. And then we'll determine or actually, I think we were going to talk to leadership and at that January 2nd meeting, and then bring it back for information on the second meeting in January, which I think is January 16th. And then set up some kind of a listening session schedule or Zoom, and then bring it back. I mean, we need to kind of determine how that's going to be, but set up something and then bring it back probably the first meeting in February for a vote is kind of the way Coy and I have structured that out. So.
Okay, so
we will announce.
Talk about it.
Yep.
In
January 2nd.
January 2nd, have a informational at the 16th. Now, remember, we do have the advantage of a special meeting, and we've cut out a study session each month. So we could have a special meeting
in January, because that's a long month.
Yeah, to make a vote. So February, we would meet every Tuesday, which we haven't been, so that wouldn't be.
Well, we could meet the 4th or the 5th Tuesday in January via Zoom, or there's 5 Tuesdays in January.
Okay,
so
so we
have
can
some
get
time.
it done in January. That would be nice, not to float it to February. That just seems to start being late. So if we either a regular meeting in January, or we can call a special meeting in January for the actual vote, and then there's plenty times for us, Ms. Stephenson, to set up to, at least 2 Zooms in that time frame. All right, any input from yes, Ms. Baker? Yes.
Correct. Yes.
19.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's done. But we kind of made a commitment since we proponed it. All right, any other input? Mr. Swan.
One thing I would like to, I guess, remind people, we did have somebody show up and told us our meeting space is too small, and that we were, we had promised to look at maybe, or he had suggested maybe that we had moved to a bigger auditorium or type space, just so that we could take feedback. You know what I mean? I'm one of those guys, man. I would like to hear it from somebody rather than on a Zoom. And that gives us an opportunity to go out, communicate, to go out and be authentic with where we're at.
We're very challenged in being able to record and post those meetings that we have outside of this facility. We can contact the city, but they charge us a lot to rent the the old chambers, which does have a little bit larger of capacity. We can,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, and they're in the middle of a
Not a
remodel. I
small
don't know where they're at,
auditorium. Is there
so.
Anywhere that.
Are we
could look
obligated
at
to record it? I mean.
I would have it.
I just think the expectation is, that's one of the things that we've heard from the listening sessions that are in person, is they're not recorded. If we go out in places, that's our problem, is other than a Facebook Live or something like that, it's.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
for me, before I would support moving anywhere, I would like this place to be overflowed for real. Because when I went back there, I think the most that there was, Mr. Sergeant was regulating, there was no more than 2, 3, 5, 2 people back there. And when I went back there, there was nobody. So before I would consider moving, I think we need to have the evidence that there's actually not enough space in here. And that's not the factual case at this point for me. Okay, all right, so that's kind of the game plan and the outlay for the vote on the next boundary. Any other? All right, seeing none, now I will entertain a motion for an executive session. So moved. Second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, we are now in executive session. The board will not be making any votes